Hey everybody, this is Presto.
CorporalNosaj.
And you are listening to episode 36 of the Nintendads Podcast. And we got a special guest on today's show.
Hi, down there.
Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Hey, I'm Blake Kronsbein, aka Crinklebine, and I play on the Valorant team for Mizzou. And I just finished my freshman year at Mizzou and getting ready for next year.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thanks for coming on the show. If you haven't guessed, this is going to be the esports episode. We've talked about having this episode.
Enough.
I feel like for a year we've been talking about, we're going to do an esports episode eventually.
I mean, even back when we had Nick Yeti, we were talking about doing this.
It was, how did it, oh no, I know exactly when we talked about it. It was when they brought Overwatch to Switch.
Yes.
And it's terrible. And we said maybe there'll be a separate division of the esports, of the Overwatch Esports League for Switch that's just like toddlers.
Because it's different.
Because it's terrible.
Toddlers in the room.
But we're talking real esports with Mr. Crinklebine. Again, thanks for coming on the show. But before we dive in, before we clap, what are esports? What are esports? The technical definition is a multiplayer video game played competitively for spectators, typically by professional gamers. Which is a whole lot of words that don't necessarily give a good meaning. Crinklebine, what are esports to you? What do you classify as esports?
Esports, I mean, it's just any game that can be played competitively and that are popular, I think. And then, what's a competitive game? A lot of people ask me that, especially older people. But like Super Mario Bros, like from the 80s, probably not an esport, but like Counter-Strike, Valorant, League of Legends, Rocket League, these are games that a lot of people play casually, competitively, and they're very popular, and a lot of people want to watch them. And that's what I
Notice that he didn't say Fortnite in that list. I'm just saying.
I'm not a Fortnite fan. I did play it, but I was more of a PUBG guy, honestly.
You are in good company. Yeah. Well, it's like Fortnite is competitive by nature because it's like Battle Royale, so you're competing to survive, but I wouldn't say properly professional competitive.
I mean, there are Fortnite pros, and there's actually
Fortnite
pros who went into Valorant. Like, there's a couple good ones, but
they needed.
I mean, Fortnite has so many wacky things and unpredictable, unbalanced, parts of the game that it's really, you can't put your life in it and try to, get all the all of the little bugs and
a lot of factors outside of skill that come into play.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That CBS mini docu that I sent you, Presto, in our group chat, there was somebody in there who got a scholarship from Fortnite.
Good for them.
So,
they can go get a scholarship and a full education so they can learn to play a real game. Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we don't need to separate the segments. So Mr. Crinklebine is kind of the star of our show here. We're going to talk about a couple different parts of esports, including the fabled question: are esports players athletes? But we'll get there. First, we want to hear more Crinklebine. So tell us how you got started, in games, and then in competitive games, and then how'd you end up on the roster for Mizzou?
Yeah, so I mean, I love playing Minecraft on the Xbox 360, and I play Super Smash Bros on GameCube.
You're saying all the right
Wii
things
and stuff. Oh yeah, and then I started getting into computers, and I built my first computer when I was a freshman in high school, and I just love computer games, and it started with Counter-Strike really. I played Counter-Strike on a pretty crappy desktop, and I was getting 50 frames per second. I was like, man, I need to upgrade.
Counter-Strike is the gateway drug to most
Oh,
things.
it is, yeah.
50 frames per second is pretty good compared to the first computer I played shooters on.
Oh, yeah. No, but dude, Counter-Strike, it's you need 400 frames or you're not going anywhere.
For those noobs of ours who are at home, wondering what frames are.
Yeah, how many times that a frame pops up on your screen per second, basically.
Screen refreshes and displays an image.
Yeah, and then people are wondering why do you need more than 144 or 60 even, because the monitor refresh rate's 60 hertz or 144. It's really complicated. I'm not going to get into it, but basically you need a beefy computer. I built one, loved Counter-Strike, and I played other games like PUBG. That was a big one. And eventually I got the beta key for Valorant when that came out, and that was becoming a big thing, and I loved it because it was like Counter-Strike with a twist, and I was kind of getting bored of Counter-Strike at the time, so I just went all in on Valorant, and it's been really fun since then.
So 2 questions. A, I guess you kind of you had some diversity in your games early on, but then you kind of were pretty much into first-person shooters, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And Minecraft casually. I love Minecraft.
Yeah, we had a Minecraft server
Minecraft.
for years called the Velt. Shout out to the Velt guys on and girls on Facebook. But we had a server that I ran out of my apartment for years, and I would get texts while I was at work, and they're like, the server's down, and my apartment was right next to where I worked. I'm like, hold on, my lunch break is in an hour. I'm go next door. See what the hell's wrong with my computer.
I can't wait an hour.
Priorities, man. Priorities.
Right?
Yeah. I'd be like, hold on, guys. I got to go to the bathroom. They're like, the bathroom? No, I have to go to the bathroom at home. It's a privacy thing. I got to, and then I'd be fixing. It was Java. It was so sketchy. But yeah, no, Minecraft's good stuff. And when you played before Valorant, did you ever play any games competitively? I know Counter-Strike is there's rank stuff, but did you ever play pickup games or any part of a team or tournaments with Counter-Strike?
No, I really started doing competitive esports in college, just this this past year. That's when I first started. But I've always been I always watch pro matches, and I love watching pro games and trying to get better, and then I always try to get better at Counter-Strike. But I wasn't very good at Counter-Strike, but then for some reason I was really good at Valorant, so I just stuck to that.
I've played Valorant a couple times, and it was fun, and I've played Counter-Strike, and I hated it. I had no idea what was going on.
Valorant's easier to get into, but
I've never played either one. That's why
I feel like you would like
Counter-Strike
Valorant.
once. I played Counter-Strike once with Yeti, but that was it.
Counter-Strike's hard to get into, but if you really put some time into it, then you'll get hooked. It's just one of those games.
Corporal is a Halo fanatic.
Oh yeah.
So
I also love Halo.
Halo.
I feel
Halo
like
is
you
where
could
it's at.
suck Corporal into Valorant just because he likes Halo so much.
Yeah, honestly, if you liked Halo, you might like Valorant.
All right.
Yeah.
So before I knew you played competitive Valorant, I didn't even know. Well, I knew competitive Valorant was a thing, obviously, but I didn't know that at the collegiate level that Valorant was a thing. So tell us what is it like? What is the esports scene through your college like? You play other colleges, or how's the whole system work?
Yeah, so Valorant compared to other collegiate esports is actually huge. It's bigger than Counter-Strike now.
Really?
Yeah, from what I've heard, from what I've seen, Valorant's huge. Bigger prize pools than Counter-Strike, and yeah. So basically, we just joined a bunch of leagues and tournaments and stuff, and some of the leagues CSL was the biggest one. That had 165 teams, 165, and then NACE, we were in one that was 50 teams. We got second in that one. But it's really competitive. The Canadian teams are really good for some reason, so they're always in the top 4 or whatever. But
the Overwatch.
Stay inside and play.
Yeah.
Overwatch. Yeah, it's freezing outside. They're not going out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all the players, we have to juggle grades, and then getting better at Valorant, and then a social life if you want to have one, and it's kind of difficult, but it's a lot of fun too, and I've met a lot of friends through it.
If my memory of Saved by the Bell and most of those college age or high school age TV shows and movies, if you have bad grades, they take you off the team. Or do they give you steroids and they just say, "Hey, your grades are B's. Keep going."
The only steroids in esports you can get is Adderall, but I mean, but yeah, you have to keep up your grades.
And I'm assuming there are
like
where there's professional leagues, there's scholarships. So I assume there's some sort of scholarships at some level, right?
Yeah, so a lot of colleges now, and weirdly enough, the smaller colleges have scholarships for esports players. And we didn't get scholarship this year because Valorant's a new game, and it's not considered like a varsity esport, like Rocket League is and League of Legends is at Mizzou. But they're planning on making Mizzou a varsity team next year, so scholarships would come with that. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah.
Interesting.
Corporal, if we get our kids playing some games now, then we
They'll
won't
be
have to
ready
pay
by
for
that
college
time?
later.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Although all the
Yeah.
games that are competitive right now are probably going to be like retro classics by the time they're in college.
I
They're
mean,
like, you played
yeah.
with a controller, you didn't play with your mind link? Like, who does that?
Yeah.
It wasn't in full VR?
Yeah, I mean, like, when you think about it, Counter-Strike Global Offensive has been around since like 2012, but then Counter-Strike as a whole has been around for over 20 years. So I think like Valorant's going to last for a long time, but I think, you know, when Valorant first came out, a lot of pros started coming in from other games, and games that weren't even like related to Valorant and Counter-Strike, like the mechanics were different, but a lot of the players were they have that like competitive mindset. They know what it takes to win, like to train, and those are the players that make it to the top. So it's really about that mindset, I think.
I feel like when Valorant came out, there was a mass exodus from Overwatch.
Yeah.
Because me and Corporal played Overwatch from the beta.
Yeah.
And the beta was super fun. Overwatch was super fun for like, I don't know, the first like 6, maybe 9 months were like really good, and then they started like, I don't know, the developers just got bored and they're like, let's give everyone a stun and crowd control.
Oh yeah.
And it just became so out of control. And I think that was about the time where Valorant either had come out or where it was really like getting traction, and everybody just left Overwatch.
Yeah, they've been, you know, pretty good about balance and fixing bugs, and like keeping the competitive integrity of the game. Really, their anti-cheat's really good. Like, I've only come across a couple of cheaters.
I have some issues with their anti-cheat actually.
Oh, with the
really?
root kit?
Yeah, that's not okay. First of all right. First, let me say, I think Valorant has stellar pro and competitive support because it's by Riot, and Riot is League of Legends. Like, they're no stranger to keeping things balanced and doing things in real time. Blizzard, I think, had high hopes for Overwatch, but ultimately, like, that's not their wheelhouse. But yeah, so Corbel, I don't know if you know this, but the anti-cheat Vanguard software, I think it's called, for Valorant, in order to run Valorant, you have to run the anti-cheat, and the anti-cheat only runs if you give it root access to your machine. So that means it has access to everything at all times, like total carte blanche, everything.
Control, yeah.
Yes, and that's
if that were to ever be compromised.
That I understand what the idea is, that if you give it access at the lowest layer, it can catch anything. But like, there's plenty of anti-cheats that don't have the capability of hijacking my machine.
Yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, that is a concern, but coming from Counter-Strike, where there's a cheater like every other game, I don't really care if they get administrator, you know, and I don't do online baking or anything on this computer, so like, I'm not worried if something happens or China takes over or something. It's like, whatever.
It has, I mean, I was like, oh, this is so stupid. They don't need root access. Yeah, I'll install. Hold on. Yeah, permissions. Yeah. Like, it hasn't kept me from trying the game out. I do close it when I'm not playing, because it boots by default. I'm like, no. You don't get to see me play other games. Okay. So, Valorant, I've played like maybe a couple hours. Corporal has never played it. Explain it to us like we're 5. Do like the most basic breakdown of like how how that, we know it's an objective based game, but like what are the roles, and then what is your role in the team? Like if we're doing like a football analogy, it's like, okay, football, you have defenders, you have wide receivers, you have quarterbacks, and I play this role. What? Why are you throwing your hands up?
I'll let it go. I'll
What?
let it go. Nope, this will be saved for later.
Okay.
I know what. Okay, yeah, continue. Anyway,
Okay.
yes, sorry. Explain, please.
Okay, so it's 2 teams. Each game's like 2 teams, 5 versus 5, and there's the attackers and the defenders. The objective of the attackers is to take over. They're called the bomb sites, and they have to plant. It's called the spike in this game. And after they plant the spike, after like 40 seconds, it blows up and kills everybody.
So very
the
similar to
defenders-
Counter-Strike.
Very similar, yeah. They call it a spike instead of a bomb to be more family friendly, which is great because colleges, it's like, you know, they don't want to sponsor Counter-Strike, but hey, like a cartoon game, whatever, that's fine. But anyways, I digress. So the
What's
defenders.
the game where you can turn into a chicken? I mean, that's family friendly. You shoot them and then they turn into a chicken.
Oh,
You got-
no, Realm Royale.
Realms, yes, yeah.
That's high-res studio. We don't talk about that developer on this podcast except with spite.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
anyways, the defenders, they try to stop the attackers from planting the spike. And that's the whole thing. And there's different roles. There's like, they're called the duelists, which are the ones that they take the first engagement. They go for the frags. They go in first into the bomb site, or they push on defender side, and they're supposed to get the most kills.
So like
And then
offensive DPS style.
Pretty much, yeah. And then there's the they're called the Sentinels, and their objective is to lock down areas of the map. So like if there's a choke point to get into a bomb site, they're supposed to delay as long as possible the attackers from getting in. So they have a lot of slow abilities, and also on attacker side, they watch the flank. So like there's a lot of like flanking around the map, and it's kind of confusing, but so that's the Sentinel's job. And then there's the Initiator's job. That's what I play, and that's helping your team get into a bomb site. It's also gaining information. It's more of a support role, and I think that's pretty much all. Oh, then there's the controllers. They're like the smoke characters. They put a smoke on a part of the map so that the enemy team can't look through it and shoot you. So there's like strategic spots to put smokes, so you can walk into a bomb site, or you can, you know, put a smoke there so they can't shoot you at a common spot. So those are basically the roles.
Okay. So you play Initiator, which is kind of like a scout support intel.
Yeah, basically, I play Sova. He's got he's like an A tier character. He's got a drone a little owl drone thing that you could fly around and see where everybody is, and he's got a recon bolt that you shoot, and when it hits the wall, it does a pulse, and then it's like Hanzo, basically. Yeah, and it reveals everybody, and you could shoot him through walls and stuff. And then he has shock darts where it's like 2 frag grenades basically. But what's cool about Sova is you can do these insane lineups, like pixel perfect lineups, where you could shoot things across the map, and you could shoot both the shock darts and have them land at the same time at a certain spot and kill somebody. And yeah, there's insane strategy in this game. I think more so than Counter-Strike, and more so than most games, honestly, because there's so many. It's so much more dynamic than Counter-Strike. Because Counter-Strike, each player is the same person. They have the same guns, the same smoke grenade, flash grenade, decoy grenade, Molotov. But in Valorant, each agent has those different abilities. So like one of them has all the smoke grenades, one of them has all the flashes, one of them, you know, has this, but then there's a bunch of wacky abilities that are just make the game more fun.
I like that. I like ability. Corporal, you heard he started saying drones and shoot through walls, and Corporal started leaning forward in his chair. I think we might have hooked him.
Whenever I play one of 2 things. The only 2 ways I know how to play any game. I'm either a tank or I'm a healer. I'm a support class or I'm a bulldog. Like, that's it. So I'm usually playing the Doctor if I'm playing Team Fortress. When I played Overwatch, I was Oressus, the giant tank who drops the shield. Like I'm one of the two. He sounds very interesting. I'd be interested to kind of check out the game now.
Yeah, honestly, you'd like Sage or Sky because they're the main healers, and Sky has 3 flashes, which is kind of insane for this game. But and then Sage has the heal, then she has a wall. Literally, you could just place a wall that's hard to shoot through, and also has these slow orbs. You throw an orb, and instead of a Molotov, it just slows people down. But Sage is really good too. So
And the couple times that I played. I forget who I played until I unlocked the like gadget chick with the glasses, and she has
Killjoy?
like yes, Killjoy. Yeah,
Killjoy's
she's
annoying.
super cool. Yes, yes.
Her voice lines are annoying too.
That's Presto all the way.
I'm usually a flanker or a harasser
That's like the sentinel role. They also flank. So yeah.
That's what I like to do. I like to be off the radar, and I'm over here in your ear, and you swat at me, and then I'm over here. I'm like a little mosquito in those kinds of games. Junkrat main in Overwatch, so it checks out. I guess. Let's see. Where should we go from this point? What's something about playing competitive Overwatch that people might not know unless they're like actually in it? Because I mean, Overwatch is a popular enough game, like people have played it, but at the level that you're playing in it, what's like a behind the scenes sort of
Overwatch,
fact?
right?
What?
You keep saying Overwatch. He's playing League of Legends, right?
No, he's playing Valorant. Jeez.
Oh, League of Wow.
We're so old.
We're
so old.
We're old.
Because I keep making the comparisons with Overwatch. So what's something about Valorant that people might not know about, like, the competitive scene?
Those games you play.
Yeah.
The shooty one.
So, you mean like Valorant compared to other games? Like
Yeah,
what
or
is
just
it-
like
how-
something
how's it
like
different?
people play Valorant like casually, but like how does it change, or what's
Oh.
like a difference? Like especially at the collegiate level where you're like
okay.
in tournaments and things like that.
Okay.
Like organized play, I should say.
Okay, yeah. So, just like on a team level, there's also different roles. Like I'm the in-game leader mostly, so I'm calling strats and stuff. And
Strategies. He said
yeah,
strategy.
Just like a quarterback. Just like a quarterback.
Yeah, basically, I'm like the quarterback of the team, so I got to worry about like what the team's doing, but also my own aim, and that's really challenging. That's what I'm trying to work on this summer. But yeah, the team level, we have to be we have to have good communication. If you don't have good communication, people are gonna be hiding in a corner or something. He'll get killed. If you don't call it out, you're not gonna know, and he's gonna get another kill. So it's like you need to communicate with your teammates effectively, and that's one of the and not get mad at your teammates either. And that's one of the strongest aspects of a good as a good team. You need to be like on the same page as everyone else, really. And then on a broader level, like with other teams, like we used to do a lot of VOD reviews, which is looking at the other team's prior games and seeing what their strategies are, and then developing counterplays based on that. And that's where it gets really complex and really fun, actually, because like when you're just playing like random matchmaking games with random people, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna out aim the other team.
Yeah, it's
but
just
no,
like on the fly, whatever happens, like jazz.
But in a team setting's way more fun because you know the guys you're playing with, and you're comfortable with how they play, and you can perform at your highest level with the rest of your buddies.
That's where you can do the cool stuff.
Yeah, and that's where the crazy pixel perfect lineups and stuff all come into play. And
So Presto's favorite thing to criticize and analyze is Super Smash. and he literally will talk about milliseconds and frame rates.
Oh yeah.
Like, you hit this button combination, and it
Yeah.
takes this many frames for this to happen. And in that time, you can do one of two things to counter it or to attack. Like, oh my god, he drives me crazy. But it sounds like that's ultimately what you guys have to critique to when you're reviewing other players.
Yeah, it's really, it's not even, it's more picking up on tendencies. Like if there's an overly aggressive team, then we need to kind of think about, hey, if they're doing aggressive stuff, how do we combat that? And then there's also more like specific stuff, like they run this play 3 times a game. We need a counter play for this. How are we going to do that? And there's also, we do
Just
a lot
one
of
particular player, whenever he gets a kill, he makes a habit of reloading. He's vulnerable at that
Yeah.
moment. Okay. Yeah.
And it's also hard because you got to pick up on these things mid game too. Like, you know, if there's a guy pushing this one thing every round, and he gets a kill every round. How are we going to combat that? Because if he keeps doing that, we're going to lose the game. And picking up on that's a real challenge, especially being an in-game leader. Because if nobody else is picking up on it, you have to pick up on it. And I think that's what I love about collegiate esports. And then I'm also this summer, I've got a couple teams that I formed from friends that I met through collegiate Valorant, and we're playing in a couple summer leagues. And I'm trying to we're all trying to up our skills really this summer for the next year. In
There is
collegiate
no
Valorant.
off season.
There is no off season, but now this summer, like I gotta juggle like jobs and
Interviews, press
Yeah.
appearances.
yeah. My summer hasn't really geared up yet, but yeah, it's gonna be a busy summer, and I hope I get a lot better. So.
Yeah, well, this goes right into one of our next points is what is the training schedule like? Because we've seen, Corporal sent me an article earlier this week about how some of these, and I think it's, you know, I don't know if it's at the college level, but like more like the pro level, like, you know, the 6-figure salary level of, you hear
That's
about
debatable, but okay.
these players getting absolutely burned out, like into the dirt, like 12-hour, 15-hour a day training sessions, 7
The
days
one
a week.
interview that I read was that from 2 o'clock to 9 o'clock, a school student is required to train on X game in order to even stay within their league or, you know, whatever. So, like,
Yeah.
how do you even get your schoolwork done?
Yeah, so that's definitely extreme. Like,
Well,
definitely, life comes first, really. That's what I think about. Like, life and school and mental health and physical health, really. We could talk about that later, but really, like, I've taken breaks before from being burnt out, and you come back stronger every time. But you got to do a lot of aim training. That's a big one in this game, like flicking training. There's games like Aim Labs.
streaming.
Flicking training, so like precise flicks, because you know, it's a first person shooter, so you gotta, you know, flick to their head, and that's the most efficient way
Gotcha.
to,
Okay.
yeah. So I do a lot of aim training, but then there's also playing on your own in matchmaking just to improve your skill in game. And one of the biggest things for individual players is what's called game sense, and game sense is predicting what other players on the other team are going to do based on what you're doing, and countering that. So
Thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead.
yeah, and that's from just playing the game a lot. Now I spend like 2 hours a day probably, you know, give or take. Sometimes I'll binge for like 4 hours, but really just taking, you know, 10-minute breaks in between a game, because each one lasts like 40 minutes. So yeah, it's really important not to get burnt out. It's important to, you know, keep a positive attitude and maintain your confidence. And those are just huge things to be a better player.
How much would you say is individual training on you know, aim specific training on all that, versus how much do you actually train with your teammates, like as a team?
It's probably like 70-30, like individual training over team, because it's hard to get everybody together, really.
Yeah.
Like for this summer, for the teams that I'm I'm putting together. It's like one practice a week for the summer. But like during the school year, it was like 2 practices a week, if we can get that, and then a game on the weekend or something. And really in between that, everyone just plays on their own, or sometimes we'll duo queue with each other. So like, I'll play with one of my teammates who I'm going to be playing with in actual games a lot. Like if our agents complement each other, then we're going to be playing a lot to make sure that we're very comfortable with each other.
Okay. And is that like, does your team have like a coach or anything that like dictates your play schedule or your practice times or anything?
Well, we didn't really have a coach this year. We had one guy that came in just for like helping us with like communication and getting comfortable with each other, but we were already like really locked in before he came, so we didn't really get much out of that. But a lot of teams do have managers, coaches, and stuff. But we like, I'm pretty much the in-game leader and kind of the coach. I'm kind of like, my other teammates also step in to be that role too, but it's really just figuring this out together, at least for our team.
Yeah.
So, not to bash on the term coach, I almost feel like manager is better suited because then you're able to manage this schedule, manage that schedule, and manage communication. Whereas a coach, I mean, you're not being coached to be a better player. You're doing that yourself.
I mean,
right?
but they are helping with communication, like a team
True.
coaching at least.
So a manager is more like, what time are we going to play the game? What time are we going to practice?
Logistics.
A coach is like, how are you guys playing? How are you playing together? What are you doing wrong? They're analyzing what the team's doing, and they're not playing the game. They're just watching
higher
you
level
play.
looking down.
Yeah, and one aspect is communication. Are you communicating well? One aspect is, hey, your timing's off. We need to work on this timing. And then
So they're like social dynamic and cues and stuff amongst the group.
yeah, but then also they have to be very knowledgeable on the game too to be an effective coach. And I kind of coached my old high school. I coached their Valorant team this year, kind of casually, but that was fun. It trying to teach other people makes you have to know that thing very well yourself. What I found.
Yeah. Do you think that coaching at a high school level has made you a better player? Because you're like
slightly.
like you
it was
really
more
have to
fun
know the
than
basics.
anything. Yeah, like the players weren't like, it wasn't like a very like competitive like high level team. I was just there to just give back to the high school, and one of my friends from high school is still on there, so it was just kind of fun more than anything. But really, I've just been focusing on being a better captain, in-game leader than anything.
Yeah, that's so funny that's like the communication and like the management of other players is such a big part of the game that I think so many people who play Valorant have never experienced. Like for you, it's so important, but like for me, I could play Valorant for 2 years and I would never even think like, oh, I need to be able to manage like my teammates and point out like to some degree, because it's team communication, but it's different when there's like an official role of like, it's your job to point these things out.
Yeah, so if you like, I watch a lot of pros and then what they have to say about the game, and you'll find these players that get like top 5 ranked in North America or something, but they've never played on a team before, so they don't do well on a pro level. Like it's a different kind of, you have to have a different brain kind of, when it's like a different mindset. There's the matchmaking mindset where you're just getting kills and you're better aim, better
solo queue life.
Yeah, and then there's in the team setting and trying to be
create a
knowledgeable of
well-oiled machine.
Yeah,
be
be comfortable with your other teammates and have strats and stuff. And that's what I'm more focusing on than anything, because I'm not incredibly gifted with like aim and stuff. Like there's a lot of gifted players that don't really have to practice much but are really good, and there's some that practice a lot and they're really good, but I'm more focused on like the brains of the game, really.
Yeah, what would you say is like the best thing about playing Valorant the way you play it, and what's the worst thing that you just wish you could change or get rid of?
Like the game as a whole.
I mean the game as a whole, but more so like Like in your world of playing Valorant on a competitive team for a college, like what's the best part of that, and then what's the worst part of that?
The best part is making great friends, and like when the things go right and you're practicing a strat for hours and it works in a match that matters, and you're like, man, that was insane. Like that's when you're just like, that's when you're in heaven, really. And then the worst part is you do all those strats and it doesn't work and you lose, and all that practice was for nothing. But I mean, losing sucks. We lost a lot towards the end of the season. We were looking really good, the first half, like the first semester, and then a lot of teams started coming in with better players, and it became really hard, and our strats didn't end up working really. But that sucks, but it just makes you want it more, really. So
yeah, it's the ups and downs of any like competitive style game. What other games do you play, specifically any Nintendo games? I know you said Smash. Which Smash did you mean? Because I'm going to judge you harshly based on your answer.
When I was like 8 years old or something, I played Brawl, or but I didn't know what was good. And then I went back to Melee, and I played with my brother a lot.
Correct answer. Correct answer.
Yeah, I helped my brother like train for high school tournaments and stuff, and I played like Fox and Marth, and and that was fun. Only. But he destroyed me every game, but like I tried to get good enough to help him win tournaments. But so yeah, mainly Nintendo games, mainly just Super Smash Bros. But other games. Have
you messed around with Ultimate at all?
Oh yeah, I played a little, but I need a GameCube controller, man. I need that C stick. I can't function without it.
Where's one? Somewhere. It's out of reach. Oh, there's one. There it is.
Yeah, but yeah, I played a little bit Ultimate, but other than that, like I played Rocket League a lot. That's fun. Minecraft again.
Minecraft. There's a lot of Minecraft going on here. I gotta ask, what do you do in Minecraft? Is it mostly solo? Is it server based? Like, what's going on?
I mean, sometimes it's solo, but just playing on like a server or realm or something with friends is always a lot of fun. Like when a new update comes out, like when the
what are you playing specifically?
I mean, just like survival, but it's just just playing with friends. Creative kind of gets boring
after all that hectic, sweaty like esports, Valorant, aim it. He just needs some zen, build a farm.
I like listening to like podcasts and stuff, and then just relaxing and playing Minecraft.
Yeah, podcasts are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I, well, you might have to get a GameCube controller, because you know that Melee has like legit net play now.
Oh yeah.
Somebody built entire from the ground up GGPO rollback netcode for Melee specifically. So it's like cool. It's like crazy good. There I go. Corporal's like, there he goes again with his Smash stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, the last question, and this will lead into our next segment, which will probably turn into a Melee, is, do you consider yourself an athlete?
I think myself personally, yes. I don't think you could consider all people who play esports an athlete, though. I mean, it depends what you define as an athlete. I think an athlete.
I'm gonna clap. I'm gonna break the segment, and then we're gonna go. So this is separate. So you consider yourself an athlete.
Yeah.
He likes Smash. We're gonna close the segment, right? All right. So this is something we've alluded to in past episodes, but the great debate between me and Corporal, who usually have pretty similar views. There's few things we directly disagree on, and I forget how this even came up initially. But the question on the table,
I'm sure it was because of Smash, but
it probably, although I'm not sure. But the question is, are esports players athletes, and why, and how, and why not, and all this stuff? Whenever it came up, I was like, me and him like answered at the same time, as if we expected the other person to have the same opinion. And it's
They were
like,
awesome.
well, are esports players athletes? And then like at the same time, I'm like, yes. And he's like, no. And I'm
No.
like, what? I'm like, hold on. We need to save this. This is a conversation worth recording.
We're not friends anymore.
So where shall we start this?
You
Probably
have
definition.
I was about to say, you have to start this with what is a definition of an athlete. There's no other way of starting this.
It's not the thing. Okay. Oh, I already don't like this.
Yeah.
An athlete, by definition, according to Google, I guess they're somewhat reliable. A person who is proficient in sports and other forms of physical exercise. So I can work with that.
I will make the argument for you, Presto, that there is arm, upper body, and mental strength, which can be a form of physicality. So, with that being allowed, now the argument can be had.
So I think that esports players are athletes, right? That's not to say gamers are athletes, because if you go, like my grandparents go out and play tennis, are they athletes? No, they're old people. I wouldn't consider them athletes. Me playing, Smash, am I an athlete? No, I'm just a guy with a podcast and a point of view. But if you have a professional player playing a game, a sport,
there's the key word.
esport,
There's the key word.
What's that?
The word professional.
That's
professional by definition is you are paid to do something.
I wouldn't. Let's say you're compensated to do something.
So we get $5 of stars from running a live stream, and now we're professionals.
No, well, professional entertainers maybe.
Well, okay.
Not
the same, but okay.
So, Blake, before we really get into the weeds here, what's your
Blake, not to say anything negative against you or what it is you do, because I'll be honest with you, I've watched a lot of esport competitions and I've watched a lot of professional gamers online to learn how to do certain things.
I like how you put the likely points of contention in the show notes. Like the points that I'm going to make and the counterpoints that you're going to make. So we have a nice little roadmap for our argument here. But Blake, you're our guest. What's your perspective on this? Being the closest to it, actually.
Yeah, so physical health is actually a huge part of competitive gaming and performing at the top of your level. A lot of the common stereotype of gamers is like, fat, drinking Mountain Dew,
Warcraft
eating Doritos.
Guy.
And
Code Red.
Really, there's not that many of those kind of guys at the top level. Like, you'll get those guys who just play 10 hours a day or whatever, and they're just insane because of that. But really, a lot of the guys like Freakazoid and Pasha Biceps from Counter-Strike, they are huge. They are ripped. And
Tyler from League of Legends.
Yeah, and really, part of that is like a confidence level. Like, if you feel good about yourself physically, then that's going to translate mentally, and that's going to translate with your gameplay and your confidence. But it's also like, there's whole studies about like sleeping correctly, like getting enough sleep and getting enough exercise before the match. Like, I'm famous for saying, hey guys, you do your 15 push-ups and 30 jumping jacks before the match, because you gotta get the blood flowing. And so that physical aspect, I think, is in esports as much as any other sport, really.
Yeah, if you feel physically good, you get physical exercises, you have a healthy balance between your body and your mind, you're going to play better. You're going to be more physically and mentally present.
Yeah. And then a good diet is also good too. You don't want to.
If you're just drinking soda, you're going to crash at like 9:30, whether you're playing a professional game or just streaming to the masses.
Yeah, I tried Red Bull before a match once, and I was just so shaky. And it's like little stuff like that can throw off your entire game, and that could also hurt your team as a whole too. So that's why I think they are like professional esports players are athletes because they have to keep their physical body in check and their mental. So.
All right, Corporal. I feel like you're borderline getting ganged up. So what do you got?
In respect to the gamers out there, I am one. I agree with Blake. There is, especially we had this conversation when we did our interview with Killer Queen Black. When you get into the mental zone of a game, everything else disappears and melts around you. You are there, and your fingers and your mind is just reading the screen and the pixels, and you are in it. That moment of zen you can have as a gamer, you can have as an athlete. The difference in that moment is whether or not you're playing competitively at a higher level. So my point that I have here is the competitiveness at a higher level. Just because you're at a higher level, you now become the athlete. And that's essentially where the definition in the line in the sand is being drawn. When Quake first came out, the very first competitive game for competition was for Quake, and they wanted to the creator and designer of Quake raffled off, or the prize pool was his Ferrari. The gamers who competed for his Ferrari, and that was what the guy who won. I can't remember his name now.
Why wasn't this in our fun facts episode? That's amazing.
He was literally in the last moments. He thought that he was going to win. He was getting so close to winning, and at that moment, if you watch the video, you can see him shift in his chair, and he like stops and stares at the screen. In the interview, he stops and stared at the screen and almost lost the game because he could see the Ferrari in the reflection of the computer screen that he was playing in, and he was getting too emotional about it. So. Fun fact, I have respect for competitive gamers, and I have respect for the competition.
But
the athlete line. So you say the word athlete, and the first thing I think of, and maybe it's me, but I would adventure to guess that you were to pool millions of people, it would skew in one way or another that you say the word athlete, and they're going to immediately say football, soccer, baseball, basketball,
track,
a physicality. And per the definition, your athlete line says a physical sport. Now we're drawing a line here that's stating the upper body strength, the taking care, as Blake stated, taking care of your body, your mind, your health is all a part of being an athlete. So allowing that. My argument really comes down to, do you consider chess players athletes? Do you consider poker players athletes? They're playing a sport per se. They are definitely playing it at a high level, at a competitive mark. And when we're talking about poker players, they're playing for some big money. Are they athletes?
So
I don't consider that athletes.
I've thought about chess. I've never thought about the poker players. That's an interesting fact. So chess players, I would consider athletes because they did. I forget. I want to say Stanford, but that's a total shot in the dark. Some officially recognized organization did a study of professional chess players, and there is so much going on with their body and mind that professional chess players burn as much calories and use as much energy as somebody running a half marathon when they play games. I forget what the source is, but so their body is physically going through, minus the cramps in their ankles, or instead of engaging muscle
exertion.
But their body, their energy consumption from that is as much as somebody running, arguably more than baseball players do in a game.
So I will fight against myself. We have
two of us versus you. You don't have to fight against yourself. Admit nothing.
I will admit to that point because in the I watched the infographic YouTube channel about this particular topic, and there was a study that was done against
It
8
was
different
Stanford. I was right. I can't believe that.
Nice.
It is Stanford. Stanford did the study. They
that
burned.
they were able to determine that a number of synapses and mental activity and brain waves that were happening during a online competitive game was more than that of a sports game. Now, my argument against it though is that, well, of course, you're sitting in front of a computer screen watching a million little things that are happening and you're engaging all these little things at once. Whereas when you're a sports player, you're focused on a single thing and you've got a larger field of view with a lot more things going on. You're not narrowed down on the individual moment. And I also like to think that, to Blake's point, you have a competitive team. I wonder if that study was based off of team online play or individual online play, because I would find that online individual play, you're engaging more of your higher level of thinking than you would be on a team play, only because you can delegate roles to others, so you only have to be focused on a smaller thing.
See,
versus
I would say the opposite. I would say if you're playing a fighting game or a 1 versus 1 like Rocket League or something, I would say that requires less energy than being on a team, because to Blake's earlier point, on a team, you're not just considering yourself and a single goal. You have to keep track of yourself, all of your teammates, and the entire enemy team. So I would say it's more like
social aspect of it is where you're saying is going to
It's
grow.
like if you compare it to normal sports, which we are, it's like
Yep.
one
There's-
versus one.
There's my point. There is my point, and that I talked to you earlier. There's a trigger button, the nuclear option, regular sports. That's it in a nutshell.
Traditional
The general
sports.
Traditional.
Traditional
the
sports.
general mindset amongst 98% of society is you say athlete or you say sports, there's a picture in your mind of what that is.
True, and I'll get back to what I was going to say is tennis is 1-on-1 versus hockey or football. It's the question is the one person playing tennis thinking about more different things, or is the quarterback playing football? And I would argue the quarterback playing
The
football.
quarterback, yeah.
But the traditional sports versus now esports, everybody thinks traditional sports, yeah, of course. So if I say the entertainment industry, everybody thinks movies, music, books, maybe towards the end of the game they think of video games. But fun fact, video games has completely overshadowed all of those industries. It's the most profitable form of media. There are more people that play games. There's more time spent playing games. There's more people that watch Twitch than all of the streaming services combined, just on Twitch. So it's kind of the same thing where you say, oh, the entertainment industry or the video game industry, you view them as separate, but really not only video games are part of the entertainment industry, they're the majority of the entertainment industry now, especially with mobile games.
So the argument there is not whether or not gamers are athletes. It's that time has changed and evolved, and the term athlete is no longer what it used to be.
I think it's still what it used to be. I think the perception and definition of video games has changed, because football is a game, but we also consider it a sport. Valorant is a game, but maybe by the time our kids are grown up, they might consider it a sport. A lot of people consider Rocket League a sport.
To Blake, it is a sport. I
Yeah.
mean, he's competitively doing it now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's more of a matter of definition. I think athlete is the most solid term. I think what you count as a game or a sport is what is sort of shifting back and forth.
I wonder though, and to my point, is athlete the best term used? I
Probably
feel like they're
not, because we're arguing about. I think to your point, I think the general perception Listen, we're not arguing if esports professionals is the best term for esports professionals athletes, because I definitely don't think that's the case.
Okay.
But I think that they are athletes. I just think there's more like, you don't call chess players athletes, you call them chess players. You never heard, "Oh, we have the top 25 chess athletes in the world." It's like, no, they're players. They're playing a game. Are they technically athletes? Yes, but traditionally athletes have been reserved for people who play certain sports that are more focused on the physical. So I will give you the fact that athlete infers or implies, or one can assume by the term athlete, that the sport or the game is more based in physical. However, technically, in reality, when you have chess players burning 6,000 calories at a tournament, that's nuts. That's crazy. I don't know how many calories I burn a day, but it's like, maybe I burn 6,000 calories. Like,
my Fitbit tracker really should start counting how many times I play games, not whether or not I'm running or walking.
Yeah, I'm not going to build a fitness regimen around
my 8,000 steps that I've got for today did nothing compared to apparently the couple of hours of games I should have been playing.
Yeah, I'm looking to lose some weight. I'm going to start playing some chess, watch the pounds just melt right off. What other points were there to this?
The only other argument that I had, and it's not necessarily one way or another, is that when you talk about sports or you talk about athletes, the term athletes usually has an undertone of how much they got paid. That athletes make lots of money. Now,
high school athletes.
High school athletes, even professional NFL athletes will make lots of money. We're talking about millions, 3.6 millions, 10 million. Like, the highest paid athletes are in basketball. The gamer industry, although there's millions and billions of dollars that are thrown around because of this, and some of the major industries that partake in these competitive sports are huge hitters. We're talking about Blake here, who's got a team of 5 guys, 6.
Yeah.
So you've got a $3 million payout. That one person's not getting $3 million. It's being split amongst your team. That's only if you're at the highest, most competitive top level. The payout is not the same. And most times you have people like Apex, or you've got EA or whoever, they're fronting the bill for your apartment and for your food, but you're not being salaried or
criminally underpaid, which I think will eventually
only being paid by, and most of the time these individuals are only being paid by spending time streaming or making content and putting it on YouTube, and they're getting residual money for the training that they're doing for that competition, and then with the hopes of receiving a reward from winning said competition. So maybe they get the mortgage paid, but they're not nowhere near getting made the amount of money that even a sport that is low on the rung like hockey.
Unless they're ninja.
Yeah.
Well, yes, of course, unless you're a ninja.
There's
ninja,
players,
I think it's an outlier.
There's players in Valorant that, like, Tens is like considered the best player in Valorant. He's too expensive for any org, really. Like, right now Sentinels has Tens for the time being, but he's kind of subbing, but he can't really get a deal right now because he's just too good and he's too expensive. So I mean, yeah, I mean, for sure, yeah, they're not, esports players aren't paid as much, but I mean,
probably even fairly, because we're talking about you need to be training crazy amounts of hours, your training time, not to mention your diet, your mental and physical health that you have to do to pay into in order to be available for those situations, and then on top of it your team training, and then on top of your competition time. I would argue that your gamers and athletes who are doing these esports are not being paid fairly, and the time spent versus their payout is I don't know, $20 an hour at most, maybe. Like you're a $60,000 gig at that point. You're not making ridiculous money.
Well, and it has to do with like where the money is, right? Because in the last, I'll say 10 years, and probably really more realistically like 5 years, but in that very short span of time, there's now more people that watch the League of Legends final than the Super Bowl. And before recent times, that was not the case. And I don't think that the market, you know, especially in the U.S., Asia's more there than we are, because you can go on, you know, South Korean TV, and you can probably find a StarCraft match or a League of Legends match on cable television.
It's without a doubt that StarCraft is a huge part of the Korean economy.
Yeah, so I think eventually, with football basically bleeding viewers for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. That sport is dying. That's true.
I think when companies and investors and major media corporations really start to look at the numbers and reevaluate and say, wait, we're paying these football guys to give each other concussions, like we're paying them millions and millions of dollars a year, but then there's this 25-year-old kid who's got 10 times the amount of people watching him than our tight end, and we can pick him up for like what we pay this guy's like shopping bills or something. Like I think there's eventually going to be an adjustment.
I have made the argument that you could shut down live NFL games and put in Madden NFL and put gamers controlling each individual character.
I mean, that's pretty much what happened through all of 2020, right? There were no live sports. Everybody's like, I'm going to go on, let's see, what's this thing? Twitch.tv? Oh, yeah.
Like, that could be the future of what an athlete is. That could be the future of what sports is you've got the best game developers and the best programmers using the most realistic physics and the most realistic ergonomics in order to create the most realistic and the most competitive sports digital game.
Well, it might be VR games that really cross that threshold, and then we'll have to revisit this argument because it'll be like, are gamers athletes? Well, this gamer is in a full body tracking suit and just ran 15 miles during the game on his like little trackpad at home. So
if you read Ready Player One,
saw the terrible movie.
The haptic suit that the main character in the book wears, like that, if that was the future of gaming and we were talking about that was the gamer who was running the Madden NFL 30-25 game, like
it wouldn't even be an argument.
Yeah, like that's an athlete no matter what, because he's doing the physicality and the controlling of the character. Like there's no argument there.
Yeah.
And I think that's where this line becomes blurred, and why this argument even exists is because some of the
lack of physicality.
The older school mindset that sports is a physicality thing, not a mental thing.
I suppose. Fencing is more mental than physical. I mean, it requires physical training, but it's mental.
Yeah.
Ping pong's more physical. Like, I don't know. I've never.
Oh yeah, ping pong. Oh yeah, I'm a big ping pong guy.
Oh.
Yeah,
You're definitely an athlete if you play ping pong.
Yeah.
We got a ping pong table at the office. I get killed every time.
So I guess we can't wrap this episode up without touching briefly, since we are the Nintendads, primarily Nintendo podcast, about Nintendo's atrocious relationship with esports. I'll start this by saying #FreeMelee. So Nintendo's relationship with esports is hands off, to say the least. And anytime they do put their hands on anything esports, it's to choke the life out of it. Because they have threatened the famous I think it was Evo 2003. I feel so bad for not knowing this, but they basically tried to cease and desist EVO, which is the largest fighting game championship. Nintendo came in and said, you can't stream our game. And they're like, what did we do? And they're just like, nope, we just don't want it. And people campaign. They raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for charity and to protest this thing. And at the last minute, Nintendo was like, fine, you can do it. And then there's been so much stuff that's come out over the past year about Nintendo constantly sabotaging esports competitions around Smash Brothers. They sent a cease and desist to the Big House 5, or is it 6? Whatever the recent tournament was, they sent a cease and desist because it was going to have to be online because of COVID. They've routinely shut down the Smash world circuits, everything that Smash tries to do to become a professional, proper esport. They either get no help from Nintendo or they get a cease and desist. Cease and desist. Splatoon, they supported for a hot minute because they showed, when they advertised Splatoon 2, they showed Splatoon 2 teams playing against each other in an arena filled with people. That never happened. They paid the top teams in literally the entire top Splatoon team got handed a $500 gift card to the Nintendo eShop.
Oh no.
Really matches up with the image of thousands of people cheering on in a stadium. So Nintendo has baited the hook and continuously just crapped all over any form of competitive gaming with their IPs, except for Pokemon. Pokemon is big. Pokemon trading card game. You have Pokemon, worlds. They have their Pokemon championships. Competitive Pokemon is big. It's well funded. It's never stopped. It's always promoted. Nintendo.
An argument can be made that the only reason that is because Pokemon has transcended continent and time and generations. You and I were, 10 when Pokemon first came out?
Yes. I have, that's Pokemon Blue right there. That's my original Pokemon Blue sitting in that cartridge right there. Getting dusty. Doesn't even have a backlight.
When you've got that, Super Smash, you've got Mario, you're not going to make a competitive Mario unless you're doing speed runs. You know what I'm talking about?
No, but Pokemon was supported from the beginning. And I think it has less to do with legacy and more to do with that Nintendo is not 100% owner of Pokemon. The Pokemon company is 1/3 Nintendo, 1/3 Game Freak, and 1/3, I forget.
Whoever they are.
Company.
So the argument then is made that Nintendo's hands are tied. You either have this IP or we go to Microsoft with this IP and you want us.
Well, I think that probably because the whole thing behind Pokemon is the single player stuff. Yes. And then from the beginning, you always had the cable to what? To trade with your friends and to battle your friends. So some amount of competition was baked into the core idea. And I'm sure somebody at one of these companies had the forethought to be like, let's discuss terms on if this becomes a seriously competitive thing one day. And after the first game especially, I'm sure that got, cemented down before Nintendo really had this weird anti-competitive stance that they do now. So I have a strong feeling that was decided before Nintendo ever decided they wanted to self-sabotage the competitive scene. And the reason, to be clear, Nintendo isn't sabotaging these esports thing because they're evil or they're want to crush the dreams of people. They put so much emphasis on all of their games being accessible to anybody. And in their weird mindset, the idea of competitive players and everybody loses except for this one winner, and that if you're a new player, you're getting crushed, and that there's this huge rift in skill, that's what they don't like. That mindset is exemplified by Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Because Melee came out, It was super competitive. They turned it into this big esports. Years and years later, they came out with Brawl, with mechanics intentionally made to even the playing field, so that over an amount of time and over a certain amount of games, tripping, low combos, all the technical stuff that I get into. But it's been said in interviews they made Brawl specifically less competitive because they didn't like the Melee competitive scene that had come out. They didn't want that intenseness and that competitive edge to be associated with their family-friendly, anybody can just pick this up and play a game.
Nintendo's family
So
friendly.
they have reasons. The reasons are dumb as hell, but they have reasons. I just don't think that the Pokemon franchise was subject to their dumb as hell reasoning, because they had two other companies that were like, esports makes money, right? And Nintendo's bathing in millions of dollars from the Wii and the Switch, and they're like, no, we don't care. We can afford to say you to esports.
I mean, Halo's got an esports competitive ring. Come on.
That's the breaks. Corporal, do you have a side quest for us? Because I do, if you don't.
I don't. Go ahead.
All right. The side quest of this episode is, what is your favorite competitive video game to watch? Even if you've never played it, what's your favorite one to watch? And I'll let Crinklebine go first.
Oh man, I mean, I have a
and
bias
you can't say Valorant. You can't say
Yeah,
Valorant. You gotta pick something else.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, because I kind of grew up on watching pro Counter-Strike. I mean, that's probably a big one. But man, I'm just thinking. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to go with Counter-Strike. I hate to, I don't have any. I mean, I maybe PUBG, actually. That was really fun when that was a huge thing, and you get all the streamers in one game. And I was a big Shroud guy. I love Shroud. That was actually really fun to watch. And then oh man, that was actually the best. 100 different streamers, and then you can watch different perspectives, and there's announcers. That was actually the best.
Were there ever any PUBG games that had Shroud and Doctor Disrespect before they were who they were, in the same game? Is there footage of them interacting in PUBG in a competitive setting? Because I'm gonna have
I
to
don't
look
know.
that up.
I'm pretty sure they were on the same team though for one of those tournaments, but yeah, there was a LAN or something where they were all in the same room, and Doctor Disrespect's 6'3" or something, 6'4", and then Shroud's 5'4". Yeah, the two-time, and then Shroud is there's this difference in height, and oh man, that was actually a lot of fun to watch.
Corporal, what about you? Favorite competitive game to watch?
So, I have a realistic answer and a non-realistic answer. My non-realistic answer should be no surprise to anybody. It should be everybody's favorite sport to watch, and that's Marble Olympics.
I was going to say, we're talking video games, but no, Marble Olympics are so legit. I put it on for my son once, and then 40 minutes later, I'm like, where am I? What did I just got so sucked in. Portugal won that race. The marble representing Portugal.
They did. Marble Olympics is where it's at.
Blake has no idea.
Yeah,
you have no idea what we're talking about. Oh, this is fantastic.
There was a guy, and I can't remember why he started, but he would get different colored marbles, and the yellow marble is the yellow team, and then the red marbles are the red team, and you would have all of these races that were set up, and they're all downhill in some way, shape, or form. The marbles have to roll, whether it's a swimming thing and there's water, and he makes these little canoes that the marbles will spin in and help push the canoe down the water chute, or there's downhill racing. You think of a competition, if it's a ski thing, the entire thing is made of snow. If it's a track race, it's got the red lines going through. It is legit. And he has the guy makes like millions of views. It's insane
just
how much
YouTube. Go on YouTube and type in marble racing,
Marble,
and
yeah.
your jaw will drop. How popular his videos are, and then once you start watching them, like he commentates hours of marble racing, and it's interesting to watch. Somehow
he does it so good.
The real question:
beautiful.
Are marbles athletes?
Oh no. 2 hours later, we're still talking about if marbles are athletes.
They have hard bodies. They're conditioned.
Oh boy.
We make terrible jokes on this podcast.
I mean, it's in the name, you know.
Yeah.
Like dad jokes.
To be serious for my answer, actually Super Smash.
Oh yeah, which one?
I've watched.
Which
Well,
one?
because Jacob and I have sat down and just watched Super Smash competitions, just hanging out. Little Red and I, my son, and we just kind of hang out and we watch them, and it's get to see different characters that come out and see how they play and how they fight, just for that reason.
Yes, my answer, which will shock everyone, is Smash Brothers Melee. That is it's probably the only esport. I watched Overwatch League for a while.
I've watched Overwatch League. I was actually following the Florida Mayhems.
Yeah, Mayhem. I was a Philly Fusions fan because I live right outside of Philly.
Yep.
But yeah, Smash Melee is the only esport competitive video game that I've like actually followed. And actually, I've not only watched them, but I've gone to the super major international tournaments and competed myself and gotten my eyebrows knocked off. But I've been actually, yeah, it's right there. You can't see, it's off camera. Hold on. This is worth showing.
Blake, Minecraft was going to have their Minecon here in Florida. And I was going to have my son go with me to Minecon, but then COVID happened, so it never happened.
Oh man!
I got the Apex 2015, not spectator, competitor.
Ooh.
You were a competitor.
I was a competitor. I could have been a competitor. No. And look at this. This is before Nintendo really hated us too. How about that? Yeah, so I've gone to a couple of these super majors. I've met, like, pretty much... I got to have a beer. I bought and drank a beer with mango, which is, like, life goals. But yeah, that's the only esport that I've really... All right, that's our esports episode. We hope we've provoked some thoughts in you, our viewers. If you've made it this far, you're a true fan. Go you. Let us know what your favorite esport is to watch, and let us know if you think esports athletes are athletes or not. Last but not least, Crinklebine, plug all your stuff. Tell people where to find you. We'll put some links in the description and everything. So all the links he's about to say are now in the description that I'm going to put in the future. Yeah,
but I mean, just search my name, Crinklebine, on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and you'll find me. It's a pretty unique name.
For sure. Thanks again for coming on.
Crinklebine,
go Mizzou.
Do you have a dad joke?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, man.
I mean, I can't.
Well, I'm not a dad. I'm not a dad, so
that's not a prerequisite. That's not a prerequisite to having terrible humor.
I can't take my dog to the park anymore because the ducks keep attacking him. I guess that's what I get for having a purebred.
Pain.
Yeah,
pain. It's only pain.
Spain without the S.
Oh my gosh. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.
Bye.